Okay, we're good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. You're listening to Premier Credit's Pipeline Podcast. My name is Alex Grimnes, and I'm the president here at Premier Credit Consulting. And I'm sitting down with industry professionals to discuss how you can maximize your credit score, grow your business, and manage your finances like a pro. My name is Alex with Premier Credit Consulting, and I'm here with Cliff Anderson. And this is the first podcast of our new Pipeline series. We're so excited to have Cliff on today to talk about his experience in business-to-business sales, your experience as a professional baseball player, and just talk a little bit more about relationships in general. So we're stoked to have you here, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So before we jump into some of the stuff that I have prepared, we have a long history, and I think we've got to talk about that.
Absolutely.
I've known you since I was like 8, 7, maybe longer.
Yeah, I think so. We actually grew up just one street away from each other, and so we go way back.
Way back. I played football with Cliff. He's the one that got me into football. My 1 year that I played football, I played with Cliff. Played basketball with Cliff. One and done, dude. I watched Cliff play, and it was over. Played basketball, and then I moved away to St. George, and I would just hear kind of through old friends, kind of your development as an athlete. And it sounds like, there was a period where, I don't know, was it like 9th grade on or maybe younger where you started to seriously get into baseball? When did that all start?
Yeah, I think so. You got to kind of make the decision. And I remember to really get serious about the sport. And so I remember, 9th or 10th grade, I started really traveling into different combines and stuff like that and put myself and exposed myself on a national level.
Nice.
But yeah, I really got serious in baseball, and I eventually got drafted right out of high school here in Utah in the 9th round. But I got 5th round money, and I went to rookie ball and out in Arizona, and then I just went all the way up, and I played 4.5 years, and it was a great experience, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, but also now I'm here and living life, and I have a great family, so.
It's awesome. So, that combine experience, expectations versus reality, like, what was it a benefit going to something like that and seeing other people performing at a high level? Did that kind of push you to try to be better? I mean, what did you expect compared to what was the reality?
Well, the reality is you have like a 0.1% chance out of the top 1%ers to make it where I went. So the reality is I'm not going to make it. But in my heart and through my work ethic and my ability, I had confidence that I could do it and succeed. And why I went to the combines is to expose myself on the national level. Being from Utah is a smaller market. There's not the Florida, Texas, and California markets. Mm-hmm. So you really got to get your name exposed and really prove yourself on the national stage. So that's really why I was doing it. And yeah, there was people better than me, but it just inspired me to continue to work harder. And there's always someone that's going to be bigger, faster, and stronger than you. And one thing that, you really got to take into account is nobody will outwork me, so I'll go back and I'll work even harder, So yeah. It is inspirational to go and be around people that are better than you and smarter than you,
Yeah.
So anyways, it did make me a better player and a better person for that, definitely.
That's awesome, man. I remember, I think I was up here in Salt Lake for a golf tournament, and I was talking to one of our old friends, and they talked about how you were preparing to play pro ball and stuff like that. And one of the funniest things that I find when it comes to sales, to kind of bridge the gap here, is that oftentimes sales environments, there's like a single alpha, and then, everybody else kind of falls in line. And there's not a lot of competition between the alpha and the rest of the group. And that sometimes creates a negative work environment, right? Whereas really solid sales professionals can work with other top sales professionals and be inspired by that and improve their work ethic and do those things. And so when I heard that you were going to play pro ball, it's kind of like that next level up. You know, how do you get there? And I find here, you know, with our team and what we're trying to do here at Premier Credit Consulting, you almost try to like recreate that type of environment, like artificially create that environment of making it something where people can never just, you know, you're good in high school. You hear the story all the time. I was a star pitcher in high school, but never did anything after that, right? And people kind of rest on those laurels. But in sales, you can't do that, right? Like 1 month, you can't be like, sure, oh, I killed it in March, but, you know, that was my run, right? Like, you can't do that in sales. So you kind of have to artificially create that environment where you're striving to kind of keep up with the top person, or you are the top person, you're just continuing to push that ceiling. And so when we reconnected recently, right, a couple of years ago, you know, I was so impressed by your sales approach. I was so intrigued by the relationship development aspect that you have in your sales approach. And one thing that, you know, I wanted to talk about a little bit today is how can you use what you learned in baseball as a sales professional? Because a lot of my friends, I'm sure a lot of people that are going to listen to this, they're mortgage professionals, they're real estate agents, they're insurance agents, you know, they're in sales, and they're trying to compete at that next level. Everybody's trying to make money, everybody's trying to be successful, and they're trying to kind of step that up. And what a better way to kind of build a pathway to success than looking at that transition from, you know, I was good, but I wanted to be better, and I was competing against the best.
Absolutely. So I think, you know, looking back at my athletic career, there's so many coaches that say, oh, you're going to take so many life lessons from this and you know, into your whole entire life and use them. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was kind of crap, to be honest with you. I didn't really buy into that and whatnot. But the older I got and the more into my career I got, the one life lesson I learned is from sports is I was never the most talented. I was never the fastest, mm-hmm, or threw the hardest or hit the farthest. But I outworked everybody. I worked circles around everybody. Yeah. And I learned a work ethic from sports. And I'm not talking about just going in and busted 9 to 5. I'm talking a dedication of your life. Yeah. To that one aspect of your life. And, you know, every fiber of your being wants to succeed. And you have to have that in order to succeed because there's so much competition out in sports. And there's even more competition out in business, you know? And so you got to work even so much harder. And so I think really what sports taught me is definitely how to work and what work looks like. I think a lot of people don't even know what work looks like. Yeah. And so anyways, I really took that in. And I remember I went over at CenturyLink, my first telecom job, and I was selling to people that knew a lot about technology, CIOs and all that stuff, and I didn't even know technology. I was not, and it's like, how can I sell something to somebody that already knows what they're talking about, and I don't even know what I'm talking about? But I can't learn the technology why I'm working in business hours because I got to be in front of customers. Yeah. So really what I did, and so it was a struggle. You know, everyone around me had like 15 years experience in the industry, and it was hard. You know, I was fresh right out of it. And so what I did is I was calling just customers nonstop and trying to get in front of customers and decision makers, during business hours. I'd come home and I'd eat, and then from about 7 to midnight, I would study the technology. Jeez. And then I would go to sleep and do it all over again. And that was the hardest year of my sales career because I had to learn the product. Mm-hmm. But I finished 135% to plan at the end of the year. Nice. And that's not that big of a number, but when you take into account the first 3 or 4 months of not knowing the product, that's pretty good, you know. So anyways, I think there's no substitution for work ethic. It's a universal skill, and it could take you into whatever you're doing in life. And I also think once you learn how to build a rapport, and I don't even think you should build relationships. I think you should build friendships. Mm-hmm. Once you build that, sales is a universal skill. You could sell any product. You know what I mean? And so really, those are the two aspects I took from sports. That's really helped me is actually investing into a relationship and my work ethic. And I think anybody can do that, no matter what industry you're in or whatnot. That's very important. But I think the friendship part, not the relationship, the friendship is so vital because it creates loyalty. When you come off as salesy, and not genuine, people read that, and so, really being for them and have their best interests in hand, and really not even talk about yourself, get to know them and get to know what they're doing and why. That's very beneficial, and then you could kind of figure out how you could help them as opposed to just jamming down your product down their throat.
Absolutely. And there's something I want to touch on, which is the work ethic side. Mm-hmm. So if you were to go to a sales professional, whether it's a mortgage professional, whether it's one of our team members here, Premier Credit, somebody in insurance, real estate, whatever, you name it, right? They're in sales. And you were to say, hey, you have to have a strong work ethic. Oftentimes, at least like in our office, for example, that might result in like how many phone calls can you make and how many people can you talk to and things like that. But there's another aspect to that, I think, which is understanding when to push with a person, understanding really how to hone your craft, understanding, it's not just a pitch, right? It's a process. And one thing that drives me nuts is, you get those phone calls and right when you answer, somebody is just off to the races, right? They don't ask you how your day's going, what's going on. You get that sales call and they're just trying to get information out as quickly as possible because you have all this data that's like you have 5 seconds to, the client's going to make a decision in 5 seconds from speaking with you and all these things. I feel like oftentimes salespeople get too wrapped up into this concept of work ethic, which is along what you're saying, like you just have to ground and pound. You just have to talk to everybody you can and push. And sometimes that leads to a very negative sales culture.
For sure.
Right? Whereas I think that work ethic from a sales professional standpoint is more along like the Mahan Khalsa, philosophy, who's an author about sales, which is understanding your process well enough where you can identify where the client is at in the sales process through discovery, through conversations, right? That's one thing that, we preach here at Premier Credit with all the salespeople that we bring on is learn how to use questions and dialogue to navigate the sales process and identify where that client is at. We have this concept here that we use all the time, yellow and green lights, right? If you're on the phone with somebody or you're meeting with somebody and they're hemming and humming and it's kind of, I'm not sure, things like that. A lot of sales professionals don't know how to handle that situation. And the best way to explain it is if you're driving down the street and you see a yellow light, what do? Like traditionally.
Speed up.
You speed up, right? What are you supposed to do?
Stop.
You're supposed to slow down. It's the same thing in sales. You start to get these yellow lights. And it goes to what you said where, you're just pitching product, right? And instead of slowing down and helping the client navigate that situation, most sales professionals have this work ethic ingrained in them where it's just push, right? Persuasion-based sales tactics. And so from a work ethic standpoint, the reason I wanted to kind of stop on that one is I think that if you want to understand how to be a great sales professional, you have to know your product. You have to know what you're selling. But in addition to that, you have to know how to effectively communicate with a client beyond just the metrics of traditional sales, right?
For sure. I think that really goes back to, just being genuine. Like if, before I got into insurance, I was a director at a telecom company. I managed like 1,500 salespeople. And I think, every single person is motivated differently. Mm-hmm. And every single person has a different personality and they could be managed differently. So I think as a sales leader, you really have to figure out what motivates that individual and also what's, because everybody will be motivated by something. And you got to get them easy wins. I can't remember the quote exactly by Abraham Lincoln, but it was saying like, if I had an axe to chop down a tree, I would spend the majority of my time sharpening it. Yeah. As in, gaining knowledge and intelligence as opposed to just whacking it with a dull axe. And I really think if you're working, people might have a misunderstanding about work ethic by just pounding the customer, and that's not a genuine relationship.
I agree.
It's more a one-sided relationship. You're trying to pound your product down their throat.
Mm-hmm.
And as opposed to, really getting to know them and understanding them and let them talk about themselves. And I always made it a rule with my people that I managed, is that you cannot talk about us or or any of your products or any of the products you would recommend the first meeting.
Yeah.
It's all about them, and just even if it's just building a rapport with them and getting to know them personally about their family, that's fine. But also just getting to understand their weaknesses and what they're looking for and what's really driving them and what's their ambitions, on a business standpoint, and just kind of understanding that, and then setting. What maybe I can help you. Do you have some other time, next week or whatnot? And so I really think that's very important. So I think it's definitely vital for every sales organization to create that work ethic mentality culture, mm-hmm. but also working intelligently and smart with genuine relationships.
Yeah.
And once somebody knows that you're actually there for them, I think the barrier goes down, and they actually open up to you, and they're a lot more loyal to you, as opposed to if you're just a one-sided conversation, you're trying to sell a product, their eyes glaze over, no one listens, barriers go up, and you have no chance in the world. And that sales agent gets very discouraged because they just keep pounding,
Yeah.
And as opposed to getting results, and everybody's motivated by results and money, yeah. Especially in sales. So, anyways, I think that's very important to kind of develop and let everybody actually understand. To build those genuine relationships.
Yeah, I agree. The friend you brought up I don't build relationships, I build friendships, right? And I'm intrigued by that. Where did that come from, first of all? Is that something that you kind of hyper focused on and you kind of push that individually, or well, I guess the question I should ask is, what's the difference between the relationship and the friendship?
So really, I think the friendship, is an actual loyal customer, a loyal person to you.
Yeah.
And a relationship is just a acquaintance that they do business with you, and there's really no loyalty there. And I think really the way it's just that relationship to a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Like you personally, I know about your family, I know about all that kind of stuff, as opposed to just knowing about your business.
Mm-hmm.
I know almost all about your personal life, and you know about mine, and it's a genuine relationship, as opposed to I'm using you, you're using me. And then what happens when somebody comes in that's 10% cheaper than me? You're going to go to that person, you know what I mean? Because they're cheaper and you were using me for my product, And so I think that's very important to develop. It's just that loyalty with all those customers and whatnot. So, and I think that really just comes back to being genuine person and authentic to your customers. And also, even in telecom with outages and stuff like that, if you think phones and internet going down in a business, people's jobs are on the line, literally. It's really intense. But when that happens, and somebody sees you really go after and attack the problem on their behalf and really fight the internal systems, internal resources on their behalf, they know that, and they can sense that, and once we get them back up and running, they're actually more loyal to me and my sales agents than they were before that outage, mm-hmm. because they know we actually have their back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's just building that authentic relationship and friendship is vital to really building out a pipeline that's going to be successful and have some longevity as well.
Yeah. I think some of the most consistent producers that I know, and I'm limited. I got a limited scope. I work really closely with mortgage and real estate professionals. But within that industry, some of the most consistent producers, whether the market's up or down, are the ones that have friendships, right? There's a couple people that come to mind that you see the level of engagement and how much they invest in their friendships, and it's not just monetary at that point, right? But when you're a new sales professional, or if you're a sales professional out there and you're hustling, you're trying to take it to the next level, I think understanding that, building friendships and building relationships, that's probably going to be the easiest path forward to reaching your goals as a sales professional, compared to being a metric-based sales professional, right? Like, how many calls can I make? How many people can I talk to? Stuff like that. Now, that stuff's very important. We track it here religiously. But it's an indicator, right? All we look at there is if sales performance is down, what are lead indicators that could potentially be problems that we can easily identify? But that doesn't replace being able to build quality relationships. And one thing that I see all the time, from a business-to-business standpoint, and I've always been very intrigued by it, is if an individual, if you feel like you are being persuaded to make a decision in a business-to-business transaction, and you don't trust, you trust the product, you trust all that, but you don't trust the person, right? Even though it's a great product, and even though everything lines up and your needs are met and everything, you're still not going to pull the trigger, right? And so the trust aspect within the relationship is another thing that we should talk about, because I think the story that you told about outages and things like that, that builds trust, right? At the end of the day, I was in a meeting in Denver last week, had a conversation with a guy that I've been working with for a long time, and that was one thing he said. He's like, Alex, I know that when there's a problem, I can call you and you're gonna work to get it resolved, right? Compared to having to jump through all of these hoops and feel like my client's not gonna get the attention that they need. That's a small thing, but it makes a huge difference when trying to build relationships in business to business. And that's a lot of where we want to go with this podcast. Is I think there are a lot of people that are playing the same game that you and I play, right? They're out every day. They're meeting with people, they're building relationships, they're trying to hustle, and they're trying to take it to the next level. But it's hard in business-to-business sales to really be able to have a roadmap on, hey, I'm producing an X amount, and I want to go to here, right? And so that's why I love your story, and that's why I love kind of the transition that you've made recently, because now you and I are in the same boat, talking to the same people. We're really working hard to provide a high level of value. And one thing that I think kind of draws me to your story is that there are a lot of people who, probably could do more on the relationship side and benefit from that. And I don't know anybody else that does it nearly as well as you do. I mean, you crush it.
Yeah, metrics are very important, obviously. I feel like if today, if you're not having good sales results, it's a reflection of what you did 120 to 90 days ago. Just like in baseball, you got to do daily things, hit off the tee, soft toss, front toss, batting practice, all those kind of drills. You just don't hop into the game and have a good result. So I think you definitely have to have those key metrics and whatnot. But really, you can only make so many calls a day. You can only make so many, of those metrics a day. There's only so much time. And the people that have the longevity in the business are the people that have those relationships that can continue to get fed deals, and so they don't make it. They're making their calls, but also they're getting deals coming in from their loyal relationships, and so I think that's so important to have. And just like one of my friends, Mike Sorensen, he's a loan officer. I work out with him twice a week at a gym that's owned by a realtor, and and we actually have a friendship. And just one of his deals the other day, I insured it and it was closing, but the roof wouldn't pass inspection, and the insurance home inspection is the one that caught it first, and then the home inspector caught it after. But so I was the first one to get notified, and so anyways, I have a group of, or a team, I shouldn't say a team, but a group of people that I know, that I trust, that I can refer business to. And one of those guys is a good roofer that offers at a good price. And so anyways, he went out and fixed the roof situation, and the loan was able to close. Yeah. So it's like, what resources can you bring to help those people close more business?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What do you bring to the table? It can't be a one-sided relationship. What can you bring me? It's what can I bring you, and what value can I add to your business, and for you to close more deals. You know, and I just that roof story. You know, is just one key example. But anyways, it's really what can I do for you as opposed to what can you do for me.
Yeah.
And you got to have that mentality.
Well, I think the takeaway, honestly, is as we as we wrap up, is if you're trying to level up from a business-to-business sales standpoint, you have to surround yourself with people who are going to push you, right? You have to be inspired to kind of take it to the next level. And if you're not in that environment, go find it, right? Because environment is a big deal. The next thing, in my opinion, is, you know, understanding that there's a difference between metric-based sales and actually going out and trying to build quality relationships, because having quality relationships is going to drive consistency in your business, right? Whether the market's up or down, you're going to have a heightened level of consistency because people can rely on you and they know that they have a good relationship with you. And then the one that, you know, I see that I'm constantly grappling with is the additional value add, right? What can people expect when they work with you that goes beyond just the service that you provide? Kind of like your roofing story. Because in that situation, you know, it's hard as a sales professional, if you've been in it for a long time, to oftentimes stay relevant, right? If you're a sales professional who's providing a service and it's consistent for a long period of time, I've been doing this for 10 years. I have relationships that go back to the very beginning, right? And I think the mistakes that I made early on as a sales professional in this industry is I felt like I needed to recreate what I was doing to keep it fresh, right? When in reality, it is those extra things that are on the relationship side, not so much on the product or sales side, right? So you can stay relevant and you can continue to build quality relationships if you can provide value that is more so on the relationship side, that adds value to the relationship, not just the product or the sale, right?
Absolutely. People don't buy products, they buy from people.
Yeah.
And so what person are they going to buy from, you or another person, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Well, dude, I can't thank you enough for doing this with me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Honored to be on the podcast.
I'm stoked. Cliff Anderson, you're with FireFly?
FireFly Insurance.
Okay. And I'm Alex Grimnes with Premier Credit Consulting. Thank you so much for either watching or listening. And if you need Cliff's contact information, if you have insurance needs, or even if you're just looking to build a relationship with a quality guy, his information will be listed on everywhere where we publish this. So thanks again, man.
Thanks, guys.